Leaded petrol means petrol containing lead. Thomas Midgley was famous for his inventions, and one of his famous innovations was banned because of its danger to the world environment, which was the use of lead in petrol. Tetrethyl lead, abbreviated as TEL, was a petrol additive which was mixed first in the 1920s as a patented octane rating booster that allowed engine compression to be raised substantially. This in turn increased vehicle performance and fuel economy. In 1921, chemists added tetrethyl lead to the fuel in a laboratory engine, and the first production line of leaded petrol was in Ohio.
Petrol lead was used in the early model cars to help reduce engine knock-in, boost octane ratings, and help with wear and tears on valve seats within the motor. Due to concerns over air pollution and health risks, this type of gas was slowly phased out starting in the late 1970s and banned altogether in all on-road vehicles in US in 1995. In 1919, Dayton Metal Product Co. merged with General Motors to solve two general problems: the need for high compression engine and the insufficient supplies of fuel that would run them. The ever-present knock caused by auto ignition of fuel being compressed past into its ignition temperature was completely stopped. The early development of the internal combustion engine with a high compression ratio was severely handicapped by the composition of the available fuel, which typically gave rise to the knock. Most automobiles at the time had this issue of the engine knock, which resulted in overheating, loss of power, and damage to engine components. Over time, other manufacturers found that adding lead to the fuel, they could significantly improve the level of octane ratings of the gas to help reduce knock-ins of the engine in the car at the time. This allowed them to produce a much cheaper grade of fuel and still maintain the needed octane rating that a car engine required. It was welcome as a miracle substance and was soon being used in cars worldwide. Another benefit also is known about over time is tetryl lead kept valve seats from becoming worn down prematurely. Exhaust valve in early model cars that would subject to engine knocking tended to get micro-weld that would get pulled apart on opening. This resulted in the rough valve seat and premature failure. Lead helps fueling ignite only when appropriate on the power stroke, thus helping to eliminate exhaust valve wear and tears.
In the late 1940s and the early 1950s, Claire Cameron Patterson discovered the pollution caused by TEL in the environment while determining the age of Earth. After coming up with a fairly accurate estimate of the age of Earth, he turned to investigating the lead contamination problem by examining ice cores from countries such as Greenland. He realized that the lead contamination in the environment dated from about the time that TEL became widely used as a fuel additive in gasoline. Being aware of the health dangers posed by lead and suspicion of the pollution caused by TEL, he became one of the earliest and most effective opponents of its use. The view on leaded petrol had now changed because people noticed the implications lead within petrol was causing. Lead pollution in the forms of nitrous oxide, a powerful greenhouse gas produced by fossil fuel combustion from engine exhausts, is dispersed into the air and into the vicinity of roads and is easily inhaled. Dr. Alice Hamilton, the country's foremost authority on lead, argued leaded petrol was a chance not worth taking. Hamilton knew that lead had been poisoning people for thousands of years. In 1678, workers who made lead white, which was a pigment for paint, were described as suffering illnesses including dizzinesses in the head, blindness, and stupidity. Tetrethyl lead boosted the octane levels in auto fuel, but there was a speculation surrounding the safety of the decision from day one. In 1924, a report showed that 35 men at a Standard Oil company in New Jersey had come down with an occupational disease. Symptoms ranged from insomnia to low blood pressure, all at the hands of lead poisoning. The EPA completed a full phase-out of lead gasoline in 1986, ending the quest to trade steady health for steady sales.
So why is lead bad? Lead is a toxic metal that accumulates in the body and is associated with the subtle neurotoxic effects, especially at low exposure levels, such as low IQ and antisocial behavior. It has particularly harmful effects on children. This eventually led to the ban of TEL in gasoline in many countries. Some neurologists speculated that the lead phase-out may have caused average IQ levels to rise by several points in the US, and people exposed to high levels of leaded petrol as children are still suffering from lower intelligence 30 years later, according to the largest study of its kind. Due to the concerns of air pollution and health risks, this type of gas was slowly phased out starting in the late 1970s, and banned altogether in all road vehicles in the US in 1995 as part of a clean air legislation, as it was not until 1999 that it was finally removed from petrol pumps in the UK.
Nearly 6 decades, gasoline companies ignored the known danger associated with lead to get rich. From the get-go, lead was known for its implications, but companies used the small advantage to use lead within petrol. In most industrialized countries, a phase-out of TEL from road vehicle fuels was completed by the early 2000s because of concerns over air and soil, lead levels, and the accumulative neurotoxicity of lead. The use of catalytic converters, mandated in the US for 1975, and newer models year cast to meet tighter emission regulation, started a gradual phase-out of leaded gasoline in the US. As of June 2016, the UNEP-sponsored phased-out is nearly complete. Only Algeria, Yemen, and Iraq continued widespread use of leaded gasoline. Looking forward, petrol in its eternity will probably be eradicated as most people are shifting towards electric cars, as the damage caused by leaded petrol and fossil fuels in general are starting to show more.